because we're living in a world now that is changing, where our culture is changing, trying to capture the history of everyday life in the written word is very important. I was really excited when I found like the writing community in Trinidad and was able to start Poetry and Prose and just meet other writers. It is called Musings in a Tea Shop, and it's by Poetry and Prose. It's writers from Poetry and Prose. And we created this collection to showcase our work over the years. We wanted something to say like, we were here, we spoke, we met, and this is what we produced.
Thank you for joining Tide, a business tips and triumphs series. On this show, we feature creative women entrepreneurs and uncover their secrets to success. I'm your host, Leanne Tasher, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next guest. Now, let's welcome her to the podcast.
Hi, I am Gershia Mahabir. I am a writer, and I'm also the founder of a local open mic called Poetry and Prose. We meet twice a month on Zoom, and we promote writing in our local community.
So, how did you get into writing?
I've been writing all of my life. I was on the school magazine. I spent my summers at UMass Boston with the Boston Writing Project. And I mean, it's really just been a part of me. I kept a journal as a child. I was one of those kids that was always in the library. So writing has really just been a part of my life. And I was really excited when I found like the writing community in Trinidad and was able to start Poetry and Prose and just meet other writers through, our open mic.
How does your earlier work differ from what you do now? Because you've been writing your whole life, right? Do you find that the themes that you were drawn to before or the style of writing you were drawn to before has changed?
Oh, yes, definitely has.
How so?
I think when I was younger and I was a teenager, I wrote mostly about my experience, about my angst, about heartbreak, and things like that. And as an adult, I tend to write more about what I see in the community or what's going on in the world around me. So my writing evolved to be more from a selfish point of view in terms of looking at the world just through my eyes and what was going on within me.
It's interesting that you say that because one thing that I wanted to ask you was how selfish is your writing? I didn't want to ask it like that, but use the word selfish, right? But
Yeah.
okay, so writing is something that other people, the audience can enjoy. But when you're writing, are you thinking about the audience or are you more thinking about what you want to say? And then whoever resonates with that resonates with that.
I actually had that asked to me when I was doing Cropper's Foundation, their writing workshop by Funzo. He's no longer with us, but he was a prolific writer. And I had the opportunity to sit at a table with him and have him look at my work. And he said, are you writing for yourself or are you writing for others? And that's the question that I think every writer battles with. Because, at least for me, to write something, it has to resonate with me. It has to be a part of me on some level. And yes, I would love for other people to read it and say, I see myself in that. I get you. Because we all want to be understood. But at the same time, I can't go into a piece and say, okay, I'm just going to write something for the world. No, it's always for me first. And I want you to partake in it with me.
Okay. Tell me about your most recent work.
It's not just mine, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. It's not just mine. It is called Musings in a Tea Shop, and it's by Poetry and Prose. It's writers from Poetry and Prose. And we created this collection to showcase our work over the years. I started this group 10 years ago. I can't believe it. But Since then, we have grown and evolved, and writers have come and go, and we wanted something to say like, we were here, we spoke, we met, and this is what we produced.
I think that's a very creative and brilliant way to kind of capture not just your own creativity, but voices within the community as well. What are some of your, no, this is kind of a maybe another selfish question, but what are some of your favorite pieces from the book?
Oh, my favorite piece from the book would be Tamta Passad, and it is My New Neighbors. Leaning out of my back door into the night, I heard the Spanish music, Spanish speech, a child crying, sound of children crying anywhere, any place, tears are tears, no matter where shed. The sound of my new neighbors from Venezuela in broad daylight. Punching man, intoxicated. Hormones mixed with alcohol become Frankenstein's, arms outstretched. He chased the fair-skinned girl around the bar. Loco, 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 she screamed, then disappeared in broad daylight. Another night, young man rebuffed, burned fair skin with cigarette, skin intentionally exposed. Later, he found bleeding, blood pouring from mouth to ground, blood spilled by local males, Spanish music, Spanish speech, concealed red light activities, dances in the night. Any old music will do. Local males responded. One so enthralled committed bigamy. His heartless parents could not comprehend, cursed the wife, but not the boy. A drive-by shooting, sound of women screaming, my new neighbors from Venezuela. Next to the bones of the Bariman, rotting bones could harm no one.
What's the biggest impact from that poem? How does it speak to you?
It spoke to me because it reflected what was going on currently in our society for a few years now. And, you know, the imagery, it resonated. And then we're seeing it abroad now as well, as the US is dealing with that adjustment. And I liked the way it didn't speak of it in a judgmental tone, but it spoke of just this is what's happening. So it painted the picture without giving any form of opinion.
What kind of social themes do you personally address now?
It has to resonate with me. The way I write is I will see something or I'll hear something or read an article, and then it will spur a writing session. So for me, the biggest thing that I tend to write about is culture and our evolving culture in Trinidad.
And so I can imagine that your anthology, it has so much depth, like different styles, different social commentary. How do you market such a complex work of art?
It really became one body. When we put the pieces together, we had an amazing editor, Krishna Samaru. And when we placed the pieces together, it's a body of work where we have short stories, and then we also have poetry, and then there are short stories and poetry. So it's listed by author, so you get each section starting with the author's profile. You get that person's personality, their writing style in one. So it's not jagged and put together like you're jumping from one thing to the next. So it works well because it reads as if you're looking at a TV series where each week it's a different episode. So when you read, and you know that you're entering a different episode because you see the author profile. So that gives it the breathing room that it needs.
I think that's the beauty of writing. Like there's so much versatility. You can make decisions on whether you want to stick to convention, whether you want to break convention. It's a lot of fun. I'm a writer too, so I definitely understand what you're speaking about.
Oh, that's great.
How has the market been responding to your work so far?
We've gotten a lot of response. We've gotten a lot of interviews to do media. Unfortunately, though, our book was self-published. So we published on Amazon, and all of the editing, the putting it on Amazon, the digital work, the copy, proofreading work, it's all been done locally and was all done in-house by members of our group. So each person had a skill and we were able to build on it. Now, in order to bring in the books, a lot of bookstores will take the book. However, we have to bring it in and then it goes for sale on consignment. So you may not see our book anywhere but on Amazon, and that's why. It's because to bring it in with the cost of shipping and everything, to just put it in the bookstores, we wouldn't have, being a small group and we're a nonprofit group, not an NGO, but we don't sell anything and we don't ask for anything. So it would be on myself as the leader of the group, or Mutilal, who's another leader of the group, Mutilal Budu Singh, to pay for it and bring it in. So we did that with the initial shipment, and that's pretty much sold out. I think I have 9 copies of the book left from our initial shipment in, but that's it. And we sold most of it at our book launch.
So how does your open mic group help to shape and develop writers and their talent?
Oh, I'm happy you asked that. I don't think we shape or develop anybody, to be honest with you. What we do is create a space where someone can grow on their own. You know, some gardeners have a plan for their garden, and other gardeners just allow the garden to flourish. And I think that's what we do, because with poetry and prose, we don't promote any one person or anyone, say, for example, a marketing person or a publisher or an editor or a print read. If someone in the group has experienced a great service and they share it with you, great. But we don't promote any one thing. I'm gonna use this as a shameless plug. Krishna Samaru, he wrote 2 books. Not because of poetry and prose, but because he's a writer and he's in poetry and prose. We have Harold Graves, his books, he has about 19 books or so on Amazon. I recently picked this up from him yesterday, but he's writing as well. We have Heather Latu Ferguson, Circe's Dance, and she's published as well. You can find this one on Amazon. And then we have the Kahani series. This is by Mutilal Budu Singh. And one thing I love about our writers in our group is because we're a small group, we really support each other. So if you're having a book launch, Poetry and Prose members will be there to support you and buy your books, and we share our experiences. We don't gatekeep. So while we don't sit there and make someone read or make someone write or say this is what you need to do and this is who you need to go to, and we can get you a publishing package, when you're in that atmosphere and you're around people that write, you're around people that publish, you're going to find your own way and your own path. We've had people come to our meetings. I don't write, I'm just here to listen. And then 2 or 3 meetings in, they're writing and we're like, you are a writer, you can write.
Yeah, I think the number of copies you were able to show just demonstrates the passion and how much people are inspired by just being in that atmosphere. And I know what you're talking about because I went to, I think it was a film screening, and I walked into this room filled with creatives, and the atmosphere was just buzzing. It's just a really nice, warm, supportive environment to be in. So I'm glad that you're offering that to writers. Do you think that there's more support needed though within the writing community?
The writing community I found has been very supportive. So I started my open mic because I used to go to an open mic in Port of Spain ran by Fili. And that I told her, I said, I want to start my own open mic, and she was so supportive. And I only started it because I live in central Trinidad, and I got tired of going into Port of Spain all the time for, to meet up with various writing groups. And from the time I've started this, now I just had an idea. And I told another writer, I said, it'd be nice to have an open mic in Chaguanas. And then she called me and she said, I found the perfect place for our open mic. And it was a quaint tea shop. And I went in, I spoke to the owner. I said, I have an open mic and I'd like for people to come. I don't know if we can use just, she's just open arms. Of course, you can use our space. And since then, we have been welcomed by various businesses. We were also welcomed by the DB Public Library and the Tunapuna Library. This was pre-COVID. We had three different venues doing poetry and prose every month. Tunapuna Public Library, DB Public Library, and when we last stopped, it was at Phoenix Bar. And every single one of those venues were open to us. They didn't charge us anything. They didn't require anything of us. It was just, and when authors came, writers came, it wasn't about, I'm just here to self-promote. They were there to connect and see who else is out there that's doing the same thing they're doing.
How important is that networking, networking in the creative space, in writing space?
Writing is a very solitary act. So it's just you, yourself, and basically you're talking to yourself for a few hours on the page. So I think when you get out there and you start to network and you start to meet people, it happens organically. It's a genuine friendship that forms because you share the same disease in a way. You share the same passion. So it's pretty easy. And in terms of networking, I don't approach networking as what I can get from the situation. I approach networking as, do I like this person? Is this someone that I can talk to? Is this someone that I can relate to? Is this someone that I can learn from? And I don't know if I'm great at networking. I believe it is important because we're such a small community if you want to know what's happening. And everyone that's doing something within the writing community is working with a zero budget. Most people. So you may not always, unless you're plugged in, you may not know that someone had a writer's retreat that you would have loved to attend. So it's always good to be plugged in. But once you are plugged in, if you need anything, it's never been denied to me. We decided our first year to have a writer's luncheon. So it was something we wanted to do at the end of the year, just, to like celebrate our end of year function.
Yeah.
And I called up a writer I didn't know. I just heard of him. And he was from Chaguanas, Kevin Hussein. And he wrote Hungry Ghosts, which is winning a lot of awards. So if you have not read Hungry Ghosts, please do. It is worth the read. You will not be disappointed. And he came and he spoke at our first function for absolutely nothing, just giving us his experience, giving us his knowledge. And since then, we've always had a speaker come and speak. We've had Danielle Boudou Fortenay. We've had various speakers come and chat with us, and they've all done it just because we asked, and they said yes.
And that's just an example of the support that you were speaking of earlier.
Mhm.
And what I'm hearing coming out too is that there's really a lot of passion. It's really coming from the heart, why people write, why people connect, why people support each other's events. So then now I'm curious, is there space for actually monetizing this gift? Do people actually make money? Is it a good business area, would you say?
Okay, so that's like asking if there's a good business area to make money on the internet. Well, as an influencer, because it's such a broad business.
It
So
depends.
let's just look at novelists, right?
Okay. Right.
So we'll just look at novelists, because within this business, you can do marketing specifically geared towards writers. You can do copywriting. You can do, there's a girl on Instagram. I'm missing her name now, but she does book reviews and she hosts book parties and things like that. So there are so many different avenues within the industry that you can take. So let's just look at being a novelist. If you want to be a novelist and you write your book, it depends on if you are self-published or you're traditionally published. So, and that's a major thing. That's the first thing, because being self-published means you're taking on all the expense. Then you're also managing the different aspects of publishing your book, which is writing, editing, proofreading, printing, and then distribution, right? And marketing. If you are traditionally published, the publisher would take that on for you. However, what you give up is you give up the control. You may not always be able to get into the bookstores that you wanted to get into, So it really depends on your publisher, their reach, their distribution that you'll be doing, and how much attention they're willing to give you, what you're able to negotiate. Of course, you would also have to do your own marketing and promotion, even being a traditionally published author. So if we're looking at being a novelist and being self-published, I've seen a lot of self-published authors would do things such as they are self-published, but they also write other how-to books. They host workshops. They host marketing workshops on what worked for them and sharing their knowledge as a way to supplement income. And then there are many self-published authors who they have another gig. They have a full-time job, but they are published and they do their marketing of their book and everything as well. So it really depends on the different avenues that you take and the support that you receive for the book initially.
I saw a lot of debate online regarding whether it's better to self-publish or use a traditional publisher. What are your views on that topic?
It really depends on what you want. So there are certain books you may want to go through a traditional publisher, and others that you may not want to. So, I mean, long gone are the days. There used to be a stigma attached to being self-published, where it was like another real writer, because I kind of did it myself. And a lot of that happens because of vanity press. So vanity press is a whole industry of its on its own. It's basically tells the writer, it feeds on your need to be published, and they'll say, we'll publish you and you have to pay us this amount for this and this and this. And basically you're being published, but you're just selling to family and friends. So, and I think that's where that stigma came from. But after we've seen the success of so many self-published books and poets that started on Instagram and now they're on big stages, I think that's gone out the window. So the author now has to, do you want to spend the time and energy in getting an agent, in getting a traditional publisher? We've done this, and I was happy with our editor. The cover of the book is an actual home that was in Penal. It's no longer there, but it spoke to us as a group, and this is a home from someone in our group. So it really spoke to us. What I missed, though, and I wish we had, was the distribution. So like if you go with a traditional editor, you get that distribution network, but it's not impossible, because I know self-published authors who are able to get their books into all of the major stores in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's also available on Amazon. So they're able to do that because perhaps they have the budget to bring in the books and stock the bookstores, and they have that network. So, and it's pretty easy. If you're an author and you have your book and it's published, if you have copies of your book, you approach the bookstore. They typically have you fill out a form and submit a copy of the book so they can approve it. And then they may take 10 copies from you or how many other copies from you. And then you can be on the bookstore shelves.
What do you think is
So,
responsible for your the success of your book sales? What do you think is responsible for that?
most of our book sales were done on a local basis. So persons that know about the group that came to our readings when we used to meet face to face. Currently, we meet on Zoom. So most, I would say 95% of, at least for our musings in a tea shop now, we didn't do any paid marketing to say we had a marketing budget. So this is strictly word of mouth, organic sales. Most of it are people who know our writers, who know of the group, and supported us in that way.
What would you say is the future of the writing industry? This is a very broad question again. And I also want to play devil's advocate a little bit because I want to ask you about the attitudes towards reading in the modern world, where a lot of people are very obsessed with videos. And then the generative AI is also posing also people are looking at that as a way to write their books. How would you comment on those two areas?
Okay, so the first one would be, where does the industry go from here? I think, especially in the Caribbean, the industry for growth is really there. We're still trying to promote authors publishing, because we have a lot of people that have stories that it's either sitting in a dusty old box or it's still in their head. And it's to get it out because we're living in a world now that is changing, where our culture is changing. Trying to capture the history of everyday life in the written word is very important. So I think the industry itself has a lot of growth. We have a lot of unheard voices. Focus is amazing because you get to meet everyone and hear a lot of new authors. UE also has a master in creative writing degree, and I've seen a lot of talented writers out of that program. So there's a lot of room for growth. We still need a lot of graphic artists and people who are able to put books on Amazon. So I would like to see, at least for the future, see it grow a bit more, where we can have a traditional publisher based in Trinidad, or based in based in Trinidad and Tobago, because that's where I'm from. So, but if it's based in another Caribbean country, I'd love to see that as well too. I'm not familiar with other places, if they have it or not, though.
Okay. Do you see AI replacing human writers in the future?
No, I don't. I think there will always be room for both, because AI has existed along, beside us for a bit. And where I see AI currently making a huge impact is in copywriting and in it's pulling from there. I've seen AI written books, like solely AI written books, and I don't love it, but I don't know if I don't love it because it's AI or if it's because it's going into it, okay, I'm reading a book, that's AI. What I would like to see is the legislation to go along with AI. So you could know when you're reading something that's artificially generated, as opposed to reading it from an actual artist, and see artists' works being protected in a sense where it's not allowed to be able to just devour and then regurgitate. So I would like to see that happen soon, because the technology is moving ahead and we have to move ahead with it. because this came from a writing prompt, we gave everyone like, 5 minutes to do it or whatnot.
Seriously, you wrote that in
So-
5 minutes?
So I started it in 5 minutes.
Oh.